Right, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are. We've now arrived. I've come from Stonehenge and I've arrived in the city of Bath, and I'm actually standing within the circus, the Royal Circus, that was designed by John Wood in 1754. As you can see, the circus is what it says it is. It's a circle. It goes all the way around. And John Wood, the architect, he was fascinated by Stonehenge, and he actually drew the first really serious model of Stonehenge. And he was also, when he laid out the circus, he laid it out on the dimensions of the original ditch in Stonehenge, so it's exactly 315 yards in diameter. So circus is just a Latin word for circle. You can have animals performing in a circle, or you can arrange houses in a circle. But what makes this so interesting is that when John Wood was presented with this as a problem, he was given an irregular shaped piece of land upon which to design. He couldn't lay out a square in the ordinary sense because it would just not be the right sort of proportions. So instead of doing that, he laid out a circle. And people said, "You can't do that, it's not within the rules." And he said, "Well, I've just broken the rules, and this is what I'm producing." And very glad that he did, because this is really one of the most remarkable pieces of architecture, a pioneering piece of architecture in the whole of England. We not only have the circus, the Royal Circus in Bath, but now of course we have circuses up and down the country. We have Oxford Circus, Piccadilly Circus. What I'd say about those places is that they are places which you pass through. You don't wait and linger around in Oxford Circus or Piccadilly Circus. But here you've got a sense, because you've got the roads coming in from three sides, 3 points, that you've actually arrived somewhere. Now, if you look at the buildings, you'll see this is all typical. These are Bath terraces. You've got the ground floor, the first floor, and then you've got the second floor, and then right at the very top, let's see if I can get hold of it, the attic. That's where the servants used to live. Actually, if you study very carefully, you'll see those patterns of acorns. Again, that goes back to the time when John Wood was examining Stonehenge, and he thought Stonehenge was a temple of the Druids, and the Druids used to worship among oak trees, so that's no doubt the reason why he included the acorns. There's another story that goes by the same story, which says that the acorns were put there to feed the pigs of Prince Bladud, who was cast away from his father's home because he'd contracted leprosy, and he wandered over the country and picked up these pigs, and the pigs started wallowing in the mud around about Bath, and they were healed of their skin lesions, and then that's how Bladud discovered that he could also be cured of his leprosy, so he was able to go home and claim the kingdom. Anyway, it's a nice little story, but anyway, it all adds to the mythology. But anyway, what you've got here, 11 houses in a terrace in 3 sets of 11, so you've got 33 in total, which are believed to be the 33 degrees of Freemasonry. I don't know whether that's true or not. I do know that John Wood was, as well as being an architect, he was a Freemason, and so he probably would know. But it's a highly distinguished address. These were all once private houses that could be leased out to people coming down from London for the season. They'd take an entire house. They would live on the ground floor and the first floor. Then bedrooms would be up on the second floor, and then the servants would live right up at the very top in the attic, and they would work right down in the basement, cooking the food, and then you'd preparing the house and so forth. So what I'm now doing is going to try and cross this road, if I can, and move into Brook Street. And in fact, what I will do is So what we're now doing is we're leaving the circus and heading down Brook Street. and I want to show you something else. This again is typical 18th century Bath, the Neo-Palladian style, which you have to contrast with the Baroque style that was very, very fashionable in Europe throughout the 18th century. And the great example of Baroque architecture, of course, is the Palace of Versailles in Paris, which is a huge building, very, very elaborately ornamented. And that is the pinnacle of Baroque architecture. Now, by contrast, you have this style, which is called Palladian. And as you walk down it, you'll see, although there is some decoration here and there, not too much, what it really goes in very smooth walls. And if you notice very carefully, although there's one overarching general design to the city of Bath, the houses are all individually designed for the needs and requirements of the first owner. So it's not like houses where they're all built exactly the same. And the street pattern follows the natural contours of the ground. It's not as if there's ever been a single street pattern imposed upon Bath from above, as it were. The streets of Bath really tend to follow the streets as they were laid out in Roman times or even in the Middle Ages. But that's just because of the way that the contours of the land, you can't really impose a rectangular pattern on a place like Bath. So that's how it's come to be preserved all these years. Anyway, we'll go down here along Brock Street. Now, as we make our way down here, on the corner you have the house where the secretary to George Frederick Handel used to live, the man who was responsible for transcribing his music. And here's a curious little thing, makes you smile, a telephone box. One of the early telephone boxes. Telephone boxes appeared in the 1920s. They were designed by George Scott, and they're all painted bright red. Except when they started to put one out here, the people complained and said that it was spoiling the neighbourhood to have a bright red box. They thought it was indecent, so they insisted that it should be painted to blend in with the surroundings, which of course they did. So it looks like a telephone box, and it blends in with the surroundings. Of course it isn't a telephone box anymore, because people don't use telephones in the same way that they used to. So it's just one of those little things that sort of stand out. Now, what I'm doing now is heading into the Royal Crescent. And the Royal Crescent was designed by the son of John Wood the Elder, and his name was John Wood the Younger, and it was laid out in 1767. And what you have here are 30 houses in this quite extraordinary arrangement, entirely original. And it was, again, something just simply to follow the natural contours of the land. What they wanted to do was build a terrace straight across, and then they discovered about halfway along there was a spring of water that came out of the ground. Now, they couldn't build over that because it would flood the basement, and make the foundations insecure. So what they had to do was build around it, which is what they did. That's the obvious solution. But look, what an effect. And this is the Royal Crescent at Bath, the work of John Wood the Younger. How marvellous, 30 houses. And across the way you've got over the hill there, and then you've got down into the valley. There are building regulations which will forbid building anything on the opposite side of the hill to spoil the view, basically. If you look out from one of these windows, all you will see is greenery. But it's a bit of a trick here, because what you have is a device known as a ha-ha wall, which was again installed when this land here, which is now a park, was once a farm. You had sheep and geese and cattle. They didn't want them straying into the crescent, so they built a ditch, which you can't see if you're looking out of the windows of these houses. Anyway, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Crescent and the Circus, and you decide for yourself which one of these you like the most.